and numbers hint at in just a few minutes.
So we're in week 2 of testimony, George Zimmerman trial. The jurors got to hear from several Sanford police officers who interviewed Zimmerman right after the fatal fight with Trayvon Martin. We're going to take a listen to one of the officers' testimony.
I tried to slide out from under the suspect and continue to yell help. As I slid, the suspect covered my mouth and nose and stopped my breathing. At this point, I felt the suspect reach for my now exposed firearm and say, "You gonna die tonight, motherfucker."
Joining us now tonight are legal analysts Richard Kurtz and John Phillips. Thanks for coming in this evening. John, let's start with you. Jurors getting to hear what Zimmerman says happened that night. Do you think today them hearing the different accounts poked a hole in his story that he had to act in self-defense to save his own life?
There was definitely some inconsistencies. You know, we're dealing with about 80 seconds of time that we're all trying to figure out. And Zimmerman said his head hit the concrete like 20, 30 times. Well, the scars don't show that, the little nicks. So there was some holes poked, but, the defense still has, the state's got to prove its case. The defense still put some strong things up there.
Comes into a matter of who you're going to believe. I mean, they're trying to make Zimmerman out to be a pathological liar. He had these moments. Actually, one officer saying, I believe Zimmerman was telling the truth, maybe poked a little bit of a hole there. But Richard, you brought up a pretty cool point, an interesting point, in that the timing in which Zimmerman was brought in for questioning. Kind of explain what you're talking about, how quickly he was brought in and didn't really have time to let anything marinate.
Sure. Normally, law enforcement wants to get a suspect in as quickly as possible, trying to lock him into the story as quickly as possible. But the interesting thing most people don't know is that in a police-involved shooting, which a law enforcement officer is going to be brought in, and they want to get the truth, they want to know exactly what happened, the protocol is wait 24 to 48 hours. Let the officer get some sleep, let him get some rest, let him calm down. The adrenaline that was flowing, the excitement, perhaps shock that was going on, let him calm down, regroup, and think about it so that we can get the truth. So some of these inconsistencies, while they are inconsistencies, they're not, to me, large enough to sway a jury one way or the other with it. I think the overall tenure was very consistent.
And when it comes to inconsistencies, John, I mean, does that make Zimmerman out to be a liar, or do you feel? I mean, do you understand where Richard's coming from?
I think he believes his story. No, he's just justifying, again, the whole following aspect. He was doing a job. He was doing, in his mind, what was in the best interest of the community. I think there was enough consistency and inherent inconsistency in his story that it fits his version. Now, again, should he have ever been there in the first place is going to be the question the jurors asked to resolve.
Richard, we're at the start of week 2 of testimony. At this point, do you think that Zimmerman will take the stand?
I've never thought he was going to take the stand, and today it reiterates to me that he will not take the stand. There are too many versions now that have been played, his own recordings, his own reenactments. My client, so to speak, has now testified. The jury has now heard it. There's some little inconsistencies we talked about, but I haven't heard anything that was large enough an inconsistency that I would risk putting my client on and letting Mr. Zelleriana prosecute and cross-examine him.
I had a gentleman's bet up until today that he would take the stand, and today I knew if they got into Sereno and they played all those tapes, that enough of his side was going to be out there, and so I'm tending to agree with Richard now.
Okay, so you think the defense side, just breaking it down for me a little bit on more simple terms, that was Zimmerman's testimony.
That was clearly his testimony.
He's testified there in those recordings and the statements. They don't need to put him up there and let any more of his story
Why subject him to cross-examination on all the inconsistencies and all the other character evidence that could come in?
But as far as who we could hear from going forward this week, likely that Trayvon Martin's family, his parents will take?
Well, early on, we actually had a little bit of a disagreement that I didn't see any reason why the mother would be testifying. However, a witness was called today that kind of set up the basis for maybe the mom would be testifying to some sort of voice recognition. So while I originally said, absolutely, mom's never going to get on the stand at this phase, there's a chance that she might.
The defense audio expert, the defense's expert, testified first thing this morning that nobody knows a child's voice, nobody knows a family member's voice, even after 1 or 2 seconds, than a mom or a dad. And so that completely set up for Sabrina to get up there and say, no, I know this was my son, and appeal to the 6 women on the jury.
And the closing moments were in the second week now of testimony. Do we see this wrapping up on the same timetable you thought originally, or does it seem like it's slowing down a little bit?
Well, it slowed down, obviously, at the end of last week when we dealt with the girlfriend, so to speak. But no, I think the state's back on their game. I think they're going to wrap up, and we have Thursday's a holiday. I think tomorrow they hit it hard. I'll be shocked if they don't rest by Wednesday.
Okay, and we want to remind you that we have the poll questions on our website, a whole section dedicated to the George Zimmerman trial. Interesting, one of them today says, if deliberations happen today, would you vote Zimmerman guilty or not guilty? 53% say guilty. So we invite you to weigh in and John and Richard, thanks for coming in tonight. We'll have more analysis coming up tomorrow.
Thank you.
More charges filed in an apparent ambush of an Ocean Way middle school student. Ahead, the charges 3 juvenile now facing connection to that march.